if you're doing the front end where you're managing Facebook ads and your goal is to try and cut cost 20%, you're going to fucking work 100 times harder than Robert is in order to find 20% that they haven't picked up. And there's this thing where business owners are almost always most obsessed about their front end numbers. And so when you're in that role, they also watch you like a hawk. And when you're the guy just adding a little abandoned card sequence, just adding gravy, nobody's going, why is your abandoned card sequence only performing at 15%? Because everything you do is a bonus. I would love for you to talk just about, not just about how, you know, it's free money for them, but actually how, like, the way you're seen is this cool guy who's adding extra money instead of this guy who's like can't get the ads cheap enough and it's always like the whipping board for the performance, which I'm sure you've had.
There's a number floating around, and I think it's 44. I think it's every dollar spent on email marketing is $44 returned is the quote unquote market number. And I don't know how that was derived or anything. But yeah, so your back end stuff, there's no cost to run abandoned cart sequence. There's no cost to run an upsell sequence. You're paying $100 a month for Active Campaign or $100 for Clavayo or whatever, but that is a set fixed cost, as opposed to ads where you're spending $100 a day, $150 a day, $200 a day. From the back end, I can send as many email, and you know, it depends on what system you're using, so don't quote me exactly to this, but I can send as many emails as I want with no additional work because they're just set up to run. So we go in and we set up an abandoned cart sequence today, and it starts firing tonight or this afternoon, and you get 100 people today in your system that don't buy, then 100 people are getting the next emails for the next week. You never did anything extra to do that. You're just paying $100 a month for Clavayo to run. And so, whereas you're watching people on the front end and saying, well, I'm spending money and not seeing a return, on the back end, it really is just, hey, those are ticking up. Hey, we're getting a few more sales here and there. Hey, and it's just adding in that extra sale that you're not chasing. You're just letting the sale happen because it's following up with somebody you already acquired as a prospect. And that's, I think, a bigger thing is a lot of brands, they're focused on the front end and the front end conversion rates, and they forget the people that didn't convert can still be collected as customers.
Yeah.
So you've already paid to acquire somebody as a prospect. Let's go ahead and turn them into a customer so that you can make money off of them.
Yeah, can I just add, because what you said was like particularly brilliant for anybody listening to this. If your agency doesn't deal with e-com and you think, oh, I don't have abandoned carts, this doesn't apply to me. I promise you, if you're working with a dentist, there are very similar things, such as somebody calls on the phone, asks about a procedure, may even book it and not show up. That's like the equivalent of an abandoned cart. And you send them a couple emails and say, come back in. You will make far more money for that dentist than sending him more Facebook ad people that he can't convert. I would love to hear, by the way, if you're open to sharing just a little bit of your origin story of how you got into that, because I'm sure you're like most of us where you tried doing front end stuff first and pulled out your hair. It's probably why you're wearing a cowboy hat now, because you had no hair left from doing the front end stuff.
Actually, I didn't. I never got into ads. I tiptoed around it a little tiny bit and never dove into it. I was, as you mentioned earlier, I was in the oil industry. I cut my teeth around Houston working in plants and stuff, and realized that I was not a good employee. I've never been one to sit and do a job just because I should do the job that I'm being paid to do. I was like, let's make the job easier or less work, and let's not work 40 hours. And of course, you know, corporate mindset, I pay you for 40 hours. And I'm like, no, you pay me to get a job done. And anyway,